Welcome to Most Popular, the podcast that combines the attractiveness of Beyonce with the brains of, well, Beyonce. I mean, who am I kidding, you guys? She's brilliant. I'm Dr. Adrienne Trier-Bieniek. I'm your host. And in case you are hearing this for the first time, I am a real-life college professor of sociology. I am not one of those fake ones that you can find on the internet. I'm not a bot, at least not last time I checked. I created this podcast to combine my two loves, pop culture and the impact it has on our lives. Today's episode is a little personal to me. We, meaning I, have a conversation with Jamie Spohr. Jamie is the 2016 Miss Wheelchair Michigan. So she is a real-life beauty queen. She's also a person who has been living with spina bifida for her entire life. So she was born with it and has been dealing with it for the last 40 plus years, which she'll get more into the details of that and what her childhood was like and how all of that came to be. I wanted to talk with her. Number one, I think you all are just going to see what a incredible person she is. And I know sometimes that label of incredible kind of gets pushed onto folks who have disabilities. And I don't mean it in the sense of, inspirational or anything like that, although she's all of those things. But just her voice and the way that she explains and discusses the things she's been through in her life, the good, the bad, all of it, just makes you feel something by the end of this. This tends to be one of those conversations that the students, you all, tell me that you've enjoyed the most. So I am psyched to talk with her and to present this discussion with you. I also was inspired to do this, kind of had it in the back of my brain after she won her crown in 2016, that it would be really cool someday to combine the beauty queen pageant with the fact that she is Miss Wheelchair, which, if no one knew that there's a national Miss Wheelchair competition, now. And also, I just like to brag that my friend is a real-life beauty queen. So I hope you truly enjoy listening to our discussion. And here is Jamie. Hi, Jamie. Welcome to Most Popular.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very excited to be talking to a real-life beauty queen.
Thank you. I'm so excited for this opportunity. I really am.
So you're Miss Wheelchair Michigan 2016, right?
Yes.
So can you talk about how that came to be? How did you become Miss Wheelchair Michigan?
Sure. It's kind of a long story. I actually was registered for the pageant a year before I competed, and I developed a pressure sore, which we might talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
And so actually 4 days before the pageant, I had to email the state coordinator and be like, I'm sorry, but I'm on complete bed rest and I can't be there. And so then I had always been interested in the pageant for a couple of years because the counselor that I was seeing at the time for anxiety and depression knew the state coordinator, and she encouraged me to apply. So I had always looked forward to it, and then life just kind of happened, and then I was registered, as I said, and developed that pressure sore. But honestly, that pressure sore really turned into be a blessing in disguise because it really reinforced the platform that I ended up choosing a year later. And so what I had to do was create my platform, which was and truly is the mantra of my life, choose hope. And it's just basically encouraging others to have hope in the face of adversity. And so then I wrote a speech and memorized that based upon my platform. And then I went to the competition and had a private interview with the judges. And then we did our speeches on stage. And then we had on-stage questions. And then there were 6 girls that I competed against. And then I was crowned the winner, and I was so excited and honestly really honored because it could have truly been any of us. And I'm not just saying that because I won the crown, but it really could have been any of us. And I was so full of shock and awe and just gratitude.
What were the questions they asked you? Do you remember?
The onstage questions, there was one serious and one funny. And so the serious one was, if you were given $1 million, what would you do with it? Oh. And then the funny one was, relate a funny story related to your disability.
What would you do with $1 million?
I would divide it up a couple of different ways. I would donate some of it to food pantries across the nation to develop um, food food pantries and to reduce food hunger.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would give some of it to communities to address homelessness, and then I would give some of it to schools across the nation to promote education, especially education about disabilities.
And that is why you're Miss Wheelchair Michigan 2016.
Thank you. The judges seem to like that answer.
What was it like I've always wondered, what was it like to be in a pageant like that? Were you nervous?
I really wasn't nervous. I was more excited because I had wanted to do it for a couple of years, and so it was finally happening. And it truly was like not only accomplishing a goal, but also reaching that proverbial light at the end of the tunnel, because I had been on bed rest for the previous year for
Mm-hmm.
4 months, healing that pressure sore. And then, so then fast forward a year, and to be able to be competing against 6 other amazing women for the possibility of not only wearing a pretty crown, but also being able to share your platform and your passion. I was really excited, and I knew that my platform was important to me, and so I knew that regardless of whether I won the crown, I was going to share that as much as I could in my home community. But winning the crown was amazing because it gave me a much bigger and broader audience to be able to share my platform and my passion. Because, I mean, here in Ludington, Michigan, where I live, people will listen to Jamie Spore's story, but at the state level and the Midwest level, people aren't necessarily going to listen to Jamie Spore's story, but they will listen to Miss Wheelchair Michigan's story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about that for a second. What outreach did you do after you were done? I mean, it felt like you were everywhere, but what did you end up doing after you won?
I really felt like I was everywhere too, and that was really honestly though intentional, because I knew that the experience was only going to last for a year. And so I told myself going into the competition that if you win, make sure that you capitalize on and take advantage of every opportunity that you're given. And so I'm not patting myself on the back. I'm just stating that I actually went to 153 events in that calendar year,
Wow.
which was it was crazy. There were days when I was in 3 or 4 different places.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was really crazy. But I wanted to make sure that I did everything that was presented to me, and I met everyone that I possibly could. And so I met with community leaders, I met with politicians, I met with business owners, I spoke in schools and churches. I met with people of all abilities because, like I said, my platform was chosen not only because it's a mantra of my life, but also because it's so broad that it really applies to everybody. I mean, yes, people with disabilities face adversity, but we all do.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that people with disabilities face are unique, but everybody faces adversity. And so I just am, and honestly, hope has saved my life
Mm-hmm.
in so many instances. And so I just wanted to be able to share that with people. And so every time somebody would send me a Facebook message or a text message or call me and say, we're doing this on this date, if I could be there, I was there.
So when you were meeting with the community leaders and politicians and all these people, what were you telling them?
I would basically introduce myself and then share my story, as I still do to a certain extent.
Mm-hmm.
But just talk about some of the adversity that I had gone through, and then just talk about other experiences that I had had too. And I would explain what spina bifida is, which is the birth defect that I was born with,
Mm-hmm.
and then I would talk about life in a wheelchair, because I've been a lifelong wheelchair user. And then I would talk about how life was different I will be 38 next month. And so life is a lot different now than it was 38 years ago. And so I would talk about differences in accessibility and disability awareness and just even attitudinal barriers. But then I would also showcase, improvements that we've made over the last 38 years. And so I wanted to bring awareness, and I wanted to educate people about disabilities and about unique challenges that people with disabilities face.
Can you talk about what spina bifida is? Like, can you explain it?
Sure.
I'm sure you can, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Exactly, sure. So spina bifida is actually the second most popular birth defect in the United States. It is the most common birth defect that causes permanent disability. The most common birth defect is congenital heart defects. And so what spina bifida is, there are multiple forms of it, and I was born with the most severe form, which is called myelomeningocele, which is just a fun name for nerves, meninges, and the muscles and all of the different structures within the back. So basically what happens with spina bifida is those nerves and meninges and vertebrae either form incorrectly or they don't form at all. And so if you were to look at my back on an x-ray, or if you were to feel it, picture an open zipper, like a zipper with a split in it. So most of my back is fine, and then you get to the middle of the back, and then it splits open. So the vertebrae are split into two pieces. 4 of my vertebrae are split into two pieces, and then they come back together below that. Well, in that area of the 4 vertebrae, the meninges and the nerves and everything went through the vertebrae to the outside of my body, and so I was born with this sac of fluid on my back with all of those structures inside of it. And then basically when the baby passes through, or I pass through my mom's birth canal, then that sac pops, and then the fluid starts to leak out. Well, you have to have that repaired, and I don't mean that spina bifida is fixed. I mean that you have back surgery to put everything back into your back, and then your back is sewn up, because if you leave everything open, then you're open to infection and bacteria, and you can contract meningitis and die. So you have to have the back surgery to close that up. So I know that's a long description, but that's what spina bifida is.
But no, it's perfect. It's I can picture exactly what you're talking about. So you were born in 1981? 1980? 1981?
I was.
1981.
1981.
So you probably know a little bit about how things have advanced. A little bit. You probably know a lot about things have advanced since 1981.
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
I meant to say that sarcastically. It didn't come out the way that it sounded in my head.
No, that's totally fine. Yeah, no, I actually know about life before the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Yes.
As well as life after the enactment of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Because the Americans with Disabilities Act was enacted in July of 1990. And so basically I legally didn't have any rights as far as accessibility goes until I was almost 8 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have memories of how that affected you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
My mom is my hero, and I apologize in advance if I get emotional about this, but truly, my mom is my hero, because that woman has been through so much with me and for me throughout my life, and she taught me, not necessarily by verbally saying, but by showing me that I needed to advocate for myself, because I can look back on elementary school, for example. And so I started school in 1986, which was pre-ADA as well.
Yeah.
And so And so there was no wheelchair accessible bathroom.
Mm.
And I rode an ISD bus to school.
Mm-hmm.
The school district that I went to didn't even have an accessible bus. And so, and we can talk about this later too, but I have always had incontinence issues. That's really common with para and quadriplegics.
Yeah.
And so I used to be self-catheterized, and then I did it myself. And so I would go to the bathroom literally in a storage closet on a table.
Oh, God.
Until I was in third grade, right?
Yeah.
And so you look back on those things, but my mom is an advocacy rock star, and she approached the school board and was like, this is wrong. Like, you need to provide transportation. You need to provide bathroom facilities. I mean, it's demeaning for my daughter to go to the bathroom in a storage closet.
Yeah.
And so it took a while, but they finally got on board. And my mom did that in the community too. I mean, even the LMTA dial-a-ride buses didn't have to have lifts on them back then.
Mm-hmm.
And now they do. And so, and even transportation to field trips, this is mind-blowing to me to look back on, but this is the truth. I can remember field trips that my mom would have to either drive me to herself, or she would have to have her parents, who lived about a quarter of a mile down the road from us, take me to this field trip because the school refused to provide transportation, and the ESD wouldn't loan the school district a bus.
Wow.
And so family members would drive me to the field trips. Otherwise, I would have to stay back at the school and hang out with the principal.
Oh, wow,
And
Jamie.
so it's very, I mean, like I said, I look back on it and I am just like, how could this have even been right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how could this have even been accessible or acceptable rather? Sorry. And honestly, I have to pat my mom on the back, because one of the coolest things that she ever did for me as far as field trips go is, so I live along the lake shore, along Lake Michigan. And so there are multiple lighthouses here, and there's a state park about 8 miles from my apartment building. And so when I was in 4th grade, I will never forget this. My mom drove me in her car behind the school bus out to the state park, because that's where our end of the year field trip was. And then once we got there, we were going to climb to the top of what is called Big Sabo Lighthouse. And so the teachers had just accepted that I would go there and I would sit at the picnic table, and whatever happened, happened. But my mom was so adamant that I have the full experience that she literally carried me up on her back to the top of Big Sabo Lighthouse.
Wow.
So that I could experience that with my classmates. And I will probably honestly never see the top of the Big Sabo again, but at the same time, I will never forget it. Like, I will never forget that view, because she gave me that huge gift,
We can make Tim put you on his back and carry you. Tim is my husband, for people who aren't in the know. Tim will totally. We'll work it out. Don't worry. I mean, he carries.
That would be awesome.
He carries patients all day long. It's fine. I have this.
Go. See, we can make this happen.
I have this memory of, because we did forensics together in high school, and I have this memory that we got like a special, like the Ludingtons, like fancy bus, and I have this memory of, because it had a lift, right, and our bus didn't. And I remember we had this memory of like, wow, this is a fancy bus, and you were like, you're welcome. You're like, you're welcome.
I probably was. I'm kind of sassy. I'm kind of outspoken.
Because I remember it had like more cushioned
honestly,
seats, and yeah.
See, I never got to experience those, although I have to tell you, I have been told by medical professionals that I am sitting on the Cadillac of wheelchair cushions.
Are you?
I can't feel it.
Yeah.
But that's what I've been told. And my nieces and friends of mine have sat on it, and they said it's pretty comfy. So, I mean, I've got that going for me.
You do. So here's what I'm hearing from listening to you talk about your mom. It sounds like your mom being an advocate really like impacted you. And so you decided I'm going to be an advocate in whatever avenue I have. And that's why you did like Miss Wheelchair Michigan. You do this on Facebook where you have your fun facts about spina bifida. Does that feel accurate? Like that really pushed you to advocate for yourself and for other people?
Yes, because I mean, you think about it, and as I said, my mom is my hero. And regardless of who your hero is, I mean, you want to emulate them. You want to
Yeah.
be like them, you know? And so one of the things that I've always admired about my mom, and two of the things really, is one that she was and still is a strong advocate for me. And two, I mean, she's a really strong lady. And I'm not saying physical strength. I mean, I'm saying fortitude. I mean, she could have said the first time that the school board was like, no, we're not going to do the bathroom for Jamie. We're not going to provide transportation for Jamie. She could have said, okay, well, I tried. You know, I'm sorry, Jamie, but I tried.
Mm-hmm.
But she didn't. She just kept pushing and pushing. And so I remember like thinking as I was growing up, I'm like, I want to be like that someday. And so I started to advocate a little bit in high school. You might not remember this, but so I would speak to like elementary school classrooms, and I would speak
Yeah.
to middle school
Yeah.
house classes about spina bifida, and so that kind of like sparked the fire, if you will. And then as I got older, I became more interested in spina bifida. I mean, I had always lived with it, but I wanted to know more, and I wanted facts, and I wanted statistics, and I wanted to know what was coming down the road. I mean, we never know for sure what life is going to give us, but I wanted an idea, you know, and so I did a lot of research. And then as I got older, you know, and I learned that it was the second most common birth defect, I was like, wow, this touches so many people. And I was like, I need to share this because people need to know about this, not only because I live it, but because somebody that they know could live it, you know? And I remember that my mom taught me not only to be an advocate for myself, but to be an advocate for people that either were too shy or didn't want to share their story, or for people that physically couldn't share their story, you know? And so I just subconsciously almost kind of made it my job or my mission in life to raise awareness about specifically spina bifida, as well as a brain condition that I was born with called hydrocephalus, but not only about those issues, but also about accessibility and about education. And because you can look at me and know that I'm a paraplegic. I mean, you can see my wheelchair, but you can't look at me. But you can't look at me and know that I have a fake spinal cord in my head.
Right.
You can't look at me. You can't look at me and know that I could have a pressure sore on my back. You can't look at me and know that I've had organs removed. You know, and so I wanted to raise awareness and educate about it's so much more than disability.
Yeah.
And I felt like people needed to know that because, like I said, it could happen to anybody. I mean, there is a genetic link with it. In about 5% of spina bifida cases, I believe it is, genetics can play a role, and that's really evident in my family. I have 3 cousins who were born with the defect.
Wow.
But at the same time, it can happen to any family.
Yeah.
It can happen to anybody. And so I just have always felt passionate about sharing and educating about it.
You know what else I really appreciate about you is how open you are about the mental health part of all of this. And I'm really open about mental health issues I've had. I don't mind sharing it with anyone. And I like that you're like that too, that you say, you know, these are the things you can see. These are the things you can't see. This is not like you had a surgery and you're fine and, you know, life carries on, that there's other stuff that comes with it besides that.
Right. Well, and so yesterday was actually World Mental Health Awareness Day. And I am really passionate about visible as well as invisible disabilities, and that's why I was so excited to earn my title as Miss Wheelchair Michigan, because it gave me an arena to share about all of those different types of disabilities. And yeah, I mean, I can remember being a really anxious child and worrying about stress that I knew was never going to happen, but I still stressed about it anyways. But I didn't have a diagnosis until about 6 or 7 years ago. I actually ended up on bed rest with a huge pressure sore that was literally the size of a grapefruit, believe it or not.
Wow.
And so I spent 2 weeks shy of 2 years in bed
Mm-hmm.
healing this pressure sore. Um, and so and being on bed rest means that the only reason that I could be in my wheelchair was to go to the bathroom, to take a bath, to grab something to eat out of the kitchen and not make a long meal, but grab a sandwich or a protein shake or something out of the refrigerator, or go to the hospital or go to the pharmacy. Those were the only reasons that I could be in my chair. And so I was spent a lot of time in bed over that 2.5 years, or I'm sorry, 23 and a half months rather, sorry. But probably about 8 months into that, I had just started having really dark thoughts.
Yeah.
And I was fighting depression really, really bad because I felt like I've never been in jail. I've never been in trouble with the law, but I felt like I was in jail because I couldn't go anywhere, and I didn't have a lot of choice about my life or about what I could and couldn't do. And so I started being really depressed, and so I started seeing a counselor, and she literally saved my life. I'm not kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean, I don't know if we can talk about this on your podcast. It's been a couple of years, but I've been suicidal. I mean,
Yeah.
I've stared down a bottle of Xanax, and I've begged myself not to take them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I've looked in the headlights of a white pickup truck and had to talk myself out of wheeling in front of it. You know,
Yeah.
and until you go through those things, I mean, you have no idea how dark depression can be. And so I just became passionate about sharing about mental illness because I wanted to break the stigma, and I wanted people to realize that it's okay to need help. I mean, it's okay to need help with anything, but if you are struggling with your own thoughts and your own mind, it's okay to seek out medication. It's okay to seek out counseling. It's okay to call your friend and be like, you know what? If I don't talk to you right now, I might not be here tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know? And so I've always been passionate about, because my friend Chad he's a brother to me. He really is. And he posted this thing on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, and he's like, I would rather you call me at 2 a.m. and tell me that you're struggling and you need help than have your mom call me tomorrow and tell me that you took your life.
Yeah. The thing I think is special about you is that you take whatever pain you're feeling and you use it to try and help yourself and then try and help other people. And that to me is amazing because I hope you realize not everybody would do that. Like that's not something that most people would do. Most people would say I'm fine, I've healed myself, but reaching out to other folks is not always in the cards. And that's what's really, I think, amazing about you. And to be open and honest about what you've gone through. I mean, that's fantastic. Not a lot of people will share
Thank you.
when they're in pain or when they're struggling. So
Yeah, thank you. That means a lot to me. Honestly, I mean, I've always been kind of a proactive person. I mean, I've never been one to just settle for, okay, this is going to happen and there's nothing I can do about it. And so I'm just going to go through it and then be done. You know, I've always looked for ways to prevent it in the future, or make something good out of it. You know, like look for the silver lining in it. And I posted on October 1st, the first day of Spina Bifida Awareness Month, that I was really open with everybody on my Miss Wheelchair Michigan page as well as my personal page. And I said, look, I am going to be really vulnerable with you for this month. I'm going to share details about myself that you probably don't want to know. But this is my life. This is who I am. This is what shaped me into who I am. And this is real. You know, and that's sharing stuff about mental illness. That's sharing stuff about the fake spinal cord in my head.
mm-hmm.
That's sharing things about pressure sores. That's sharing things about organs I've had removed. That's sharing things about incontinence accidents I've had. I mean, none of that stuff is fun, but that stuff is real life, you know? And I have a beautiful life. I do. I mean, honestly, sometimes depression makes me forget that, but I have a beautiful life. but I can't look anybody in the face and tell them that I have an easy life because
Right.
I don't.
Of
I mean,
course.
and I know that, like I said in the beginning, we all face adversity, but I face some pretty unique adversities, and and but
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I think that it's important to use them as teaching tools because we do all face adversities, and who knows who else out there is facing the crazy adversities that I am that could learn from what I share. I mean, who knows who out there is dealing with bladder or bowel incontinence and could benefit from hearing that we're not alone. And
Yeah.
two, I know this is embarrassing, but three, we're gonna get through it.
Yeah.
And who out there that has mental illness doesn't want to hear, you know what? That mental illness is hard and I've wanted to end my life too, but I'm glad I'm still here and I'm glad you're still here and let's get through this. Let's talk this out.
Yeah.
I've just always I think I inherited this from my mom too. But I just have always been one of those people that I wanted to help people. And so it took me a while. I mean, in my early 20s, I would have never shared about incontinence issues or
Mm-hmm.
even honestly, that para and quadriplegics, I mean, we have sexual desires too. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
some people look at us and they're like, "Oh my gosh, you want to date somebody? You want to have sex with a guy someday?" I mean, they look at us and they think that because our legs don't work that we're
That you're
not
not human. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so I like to educate and share my story, to help other people, but also to like dispel misconceptions about us.
I
Yeah.
I am constantly just in awe of your ability to communicate all of this stuff in such a, I don't know. I don't know if I could be as tough in as you are. So I don't know if that's a compliment or
Aw,
not. I hope that comes
you're just
across
you're
as a
just patting
compliment.
me on the back throughout this whole thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I respect you a lot, Jamie. I think you're, I mean, besides the fact that you've overcome a lot, you are one of the coolest people I think I know. You're so smart and funny and,
Aw,
I think that's part of the deal.
thank
Okay.
you.
So there's a question
Thank
I'm
you.
asking everybody.
Honestly,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
sure.
No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, honestly, I just feel like there's a meme. It's kind of cheesy, but there's a meme that goes around Facebook sometimes, and it says something about you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only choice that you have. And there's another one that talks about how you never know what people are going through, so always be kind.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, I can't look anybody in the eye. I can't look you in the eye. I can't look my mom in the eye and say that given the choice, I would have picked spina bifida because I wouldn't.
Right.
But at the same time, and this might sound strange, but it's the honest to goodness truth. I'm really grateful for it because yes, I've been through some crazy stuff. Um, but at the same time, spina bifida has given me so many amazing gifts. I mean, it's given me courage, it's given me strength, it's given me fortitude, it's given me perseverance, and who knows, but maybe I wouldn't have had those things if not for spina bifida. And so I just you have to look at it as a positive thing because if you don't, then you're not only fighting the situation, but you're fighting your own thoughts about it.
Yeah. And you have an extremely cute dog.
I have the cutest dog in the world. He's a monster. He's caged up right now, but he is super cute. Yes.
Yes. Okay, so there's a question I'm asking everybody. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's completely off the top of your head. So just so you know. But I'm asking everyone, since my show is called Most Popular, I'm asking who or what do you think deserves to be voted most popular?
So there are two ideas or fundamentals of society that I think should be voted most popular.
Okay.
And those are accessibility and inclusion. Stevie Wonder said, we need to make every single thing accessible to every single person.
Mm.
And I completely agree with him. I mean, things have come a long way as far as accessibility goes since I was born, but there's still so much work to be done. I mean, there's so many buildings in the community where I live, and even throughout the state and the country and the world, that I still don't have access to. You know, there are still so many programs and so many services that I don't have access to. So I think accessibility is important, and I also think that inclusion is important. And there was a quote that you shared in one of the emails that you sent to me, and it was, I don't remember who said it, but it was something about being welcome. If you're not welcomed at the table, if there isn't a chair at the table for you, then bring a folding chair.
Yeah, that's Shirley Chisholm.
And,
yeah.
And so I'm sorry if I messed that up.
No, you didn't. You said it perfectly.
The bottom line is, people with disabilities might look different from you. They might have different situations than you, but and maybe there's not an accessible chair at the table for them. But in my case, I'm bringing my own chair. So just include me. Just welcome me to the table. Just be open enough to say, you know what, James, this might be hard for you, or it might be hard for us to make this building accessible to you, or to make this service accessible to you, but let's talk. Let's figure this out. And so accessibility and inclusion should be voted most popular. And I have to share a story quickly, because as I mentioned to you in our emails, I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie.
Yes.
I always have been. And so over the last few years, I've done a lot of really crazy, really cool adaptive things. And one of them is, I kind of have this addiction to skydiving. It's super fun. And so they don't call it an airport. They call it a drop zone. And so I always go to the drop zone at Skydive Allegan. And I'm not trying to name drop them, but I'm just saying they're amazing people.
Yeah.
Because from the first time that I met them, when I was Miss Wheelchair Michigan, it was never a question of whether I could skydive. It was, how do we make it possible for you to skydive? And so my harness is a little bit different than an able-bodied person, but I can still do it. And so I know that's kind of going off on a tangent, but I really believe that accessibility and inclusion are just so important, and definitely should be voted most popular.
I was going to talk about your skydiving in the introduction. And as I said to you before we started recording, there is no way I will sit on the ground and cheer you on. There is no way I will jump out of a plane. I just tip my hat to you so hard, because it would never happen for me. But
it was really strange, because I went skydiving for the first time and adaptive water skiing for the first time in back-to-back weekends. And I felt like I should be scared to skydive, but I wasn't. But I was really nervous to water ski. I kept telling the physical therapist that I went with, please don't let me drown. Please don't let me drown. And I did it through an adaptive clinic through a local rehab hospital. And they're like, James, we've been doing this clinic for 15 years. We haven't had a drowning yet. And I'm like, I know, but there's always that first one, and I don't want to be it. And they're like, no, James, we got you. And I've gone water skiing a few times since then, and it's really fun. And I'm actually going to try out adaptive scuba diving next month. So I'm
cool.
really excited. But honestly, skydiving is not scary. It's really, really not scary. It's the best adrenaline rush that you've ever had in your life. And you can literally, from 11,000 feet in the air, you can literally see the curve of the earth. It is super cool.
Well, thank you so much for doing this for me, and for being on my podcast, and for being amazing, and all of the things you do. I just adore you, Jamie. So thank you.
Aw, thank you. This has been really fun. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for listening. You can find more episodes of Most Popular on iTunes and SoundCloud. More information, including additional resources for educators, can be found on my website, which is Trier-Bieniek.com. And the website is linked in episode notes, so you can figure out how to spell my name. I am also on Instagram at dr.bieniek. ADRIENNETB. That's at dr.adriantb. As always, thank you to my students for encouraging me to keep making these, and I will